welcome to the Money Matters Empower Her podcast, where we're redefining what financial independence looks like for women. I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. The women sharing their journeys here aren't just telling stories, they're change makers. Their experiences, strategies, and financial outlooks carry real power to inspire transformation in your own life. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's episode. Hi, everyone. I'm Donna Cates, your host today, and I'm honored to be joined by Shelly Poovey. She is the owner of aTune 360-degree peak performance coaching, and Shelley's doing some extraordinary work in the world, and I can't wait for you to hear her story, how she got here and what she's learned along the way, and how she's helping others rise as they grow their own wealth and purpose. So let's start, Shelley, with the heart of it all. Please take about 90 seconds and tell us what it is you do, and more importantly, why you do it. What's the mission behind your work?
Great question. At the moment, because the career has an evolution, right? There's that story to get you where you are. But at the moment, my primary focus is coaching conscious entrepreneurs and busy professionals to learn how to harness peak performance strategies to increase business performance. And that's a lot of words to describe something that maybe you haven't even heard of. But what I find is people who are heart-centered in their business, conscious entrepreneurs, are people who are looking as the business as a vehicle for your mission. And so then profits are sort of a byproduct of what your business strategies are. You're looking to make some impact and influence on the world beyond just making money. And busy professionals, that's everyone. That's everyone. We all have careers and jobs, and we look at how to harness peak performance, which is unique for each person. What's it going to take for you on an individual level to be able to show up every day, not at your top performance, but that you're overall consistently meeting the demands of your life, and you are focused on getting your personal and professional life kind of streamlined so they're working together. And I think at the heart of it all, I like to say getting your business working for you or your career working for you instead of the other way around. And how I got into this was certainly a side door, back door journey where as myself a conscious entrepreneur running a busy healing, health and wellness practice here in New York City, found myself really sacrificing my well-being for the sake of my career and just hit a wall and said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And what I realized was that all the things I was using in my business, I could actually be using to run my business. And starting to look at how do I get my business set up in a way that helps me live my best life and look at the business as a partnership. And that was a real game changer for me because I did not have that mindset starting out my business. I definitely had a kind of a sacrifice yourself for the, for the mission, or sacrifice, yourself for the demands. You've got to just kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just get it done. And I think that works to a certain degree, but then, there's always that plateau that you hit where it's like, these strategies are not going to take me, they're only going to take me so far. And how am I going to get this? The strategy isn't going to get me to the next level. So I started doing that for myself. People started noticing what was happening and really wanted to find out what I was doing. And then I just started coaching other people how to do it.
That's awesome. So I'd love for you to share with us a little bit more about when that pivot occurred. What was going on in that corporate life or whatever that circumstance was that said, ooh, I've reached the limit. I got to do something different.
Great question. I'd been working freelance in New York, kind of working for other people for quite a long time. I would say easily 10 years. And I decided at that point that I really wanted to start my own business, have my own practice. And I think probably about 3 years into that is when I hit the wall. And it was because I was successful. you know,
Right.
um, I think when I started my business, it took me so long to start my business because I was afraid. I was afraid of failure. I was afraid that I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't start my business expecting to succeed. I actually said, let me just go ahead and do this and find out that I'm not capable.
Mm.
Um, so I kind of went in expecting failure, and I wasn't. It was very successful. And so I think I didn't really do a lot of the strategy and pre work that a lot of business owners do, setting themselves up. I definitely was kind of just discovering it as I went along, flying by the seat of my pants because I didn't expect it to succeed. And then when I hit that wall, I said, okay, this is actually working in terms of I'm going to have my own business, but the way that I'm doing this is not working for me at all.
Got it. So that's what you're doing now is literally coaching people that want to do like you've done, whatever that pivot looks like, but doing it in a much more intentional way.
I think
Oh,
so. Yeah. Yeah, because what I hit were my own limiting
right.
beliefs,
Mhm.
right? And so, I mean, ad nauseum, people would say that, oh, those are just your limiting beliefs. We hear that a lot, but I think the key is, okay, I'm hitting against a limiting belief, but how do I break through it? How do I break through it? It's not just a mental thing. Um, how do I get inside of what's underneath there? What have I learned that is, you know, bumping me up against this obstacle, and so that's going to be different for everybody. So I have a strategy and a process that I use for people to help them sort of unpack those and work with them constructively, because I think just saying, oh, that's a limiting belief is not very helpful
Right.
when you're in it.
And I know it's kind of like using, a lot of people talk about using positive affirmations. You know, you can say it and say it and say it, but until you believe it and feel it, yeah, kind of pointless. But I hear what you're saying. Well, it sounds like you're building something really meaningful. I would love for you to share with us what's one of the biggest lessons that life's taught you so far, and how's that shaped the way you're showing up today as a leader, businesswoman, business owner.
I think exactly where we just left off. I think that I was stuck, and the people that mentors, coaches, advisors that I was working with were sort of just giving me rote advice, were saying, oh, well, that's
Mhm.
just a limiting belief, or, oh, well, you want to get to the next level, then you've got to triple your followers on Instagram, and, or whatever, is just kind of the trendy thing. And it didn't feel personal. It didn't feel relevant. It sort of felt like hollow or just, like I said, rote. And, I tried a lot of those things and they didn't work. And when I started working this way by what I use as mindfulness meditation, sort of self hypnosis type of practices, and also working
Mhm.
with an understanding. I worked as an energy healer for years in New York, and so understanding energetics. Oh, it's not just my energy system. My business has an energy system. And we talk about a business plan. Inside of those sort of left brain sort of strategies that are traditional business strategies, we also have these sort of subtle, more right brain, intuitive understandings of what's the flow of energy and resources. We could call those, energy chakras, or, for your business, and understanding that my business has energetics, and how do I optimize and streamline that, and work with these practices to sort of unpack the inner genius that's waiting for my business, that's outside of what anybody could give me advice about or tell me what to do. And when I started leaning into that, it really helped unlock that next level of performance. I did a lot of the things that worked for me were the
Mhm.
opposite of what I was being told. So, reducing my follower count, limiting my accessibility to wider audiences is actually how I increased my business performance.
Isn't that fascinating? And the
Yeah,
thing that's sitting with me right now is that when you went into this, you had no expectation of success. Strike number
that's
one,
right.
right? I mean, it's kind of like, okay, let's be the Debbie Downer or whatever, but you just did it in spite of yourself and kind of turned everything upside down because the cookie cutter, remedies that that are being offered to you just wasn't for you. So how do you take somebody through that process? If I came to you, as a business owner and said, what, and I know for a fact that I get in my own way every single day, right? It's just all my
Hmm.
limits. But how would you work with me, get me into that space where I'm open to hearing and taking in what you're teaching? That's what I'm really curious about because a lot of people go, "Ooh,
Yeah.
that's just too woo woo."
They do. They really do. And, I have a background, my academic background is actually in cognitive psychology. And so I got into energy healing as a side door, I just kind of landed into it. But my background is more psychology, neuroscience. And so I think that set me up from the beginning to understand that it's not woo. There's actually, our body actually works in ways where we're processing information very quickly from our environment and from our pre-conditioned responses outside of our conscious awareness.
Right, it's just
So I,
happening. We don't control it, it's just going on.
it's just going on. And I studied something called behavioral decision making,
Mhm.
um, and in college, and I learned a lot there. And on top of what I learned about what we call precognitive processing. So I studied visual perception, auditory perception, and a lot of the science of that is measuring responses that's coming from information that's too fast for our conscious mind to process it.
Mhm.
So we know, but we don't know why, right? And so we could call that intuition. We know, but we don't know why. That's actually the standard definition of intuition, but it's not. It's not an old wives' tale folklore type of a understanding of intuition. It's that we're processing a lot of information. And so I think when you understand the neuroscience, and so that's where I really start with people,
Okay.
is bringing it down into a practical level to say your body is operating under those conditions, that conditioning that you've had. And we have something called homeostasis, which is our metabolic activity. We have a certain amount of resources, and our body has allocated those resources based on what it thinks we need, which is what we have needed. So when you want to make a shift and kind of break out of that mold, you've got to use strategies that speaks that language that the body operates under to repattern
Mhm.
those conditionings, to repattern homeostasis, so that when you go to try something different, there's actually movement, when in the past you've tried to do it and you got nowhere.
I bet that feels fabulous too. When you just said the word movement and I kind of sat up straighter. Yeah, I don't know. I felt that though, but that's awesome. So I would love, and I think just kind of with me saying, and wasn't being critical at all, but when I said, I'm my first thought was that people might think this is a little woo woo, but no, there's literally science behind it. Tell me about what might be the biggest challenges that you face or in this industry with you doing the type of work that you're doing, and especially for women. How what are the big challenges?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that is, and I've been in the coaching industry for a long time, and I don't want this to come across as a criticism. It's more of a critique that I think even as coaches, we can rely a little bit too much on the tropes. will say, oh, that's a mindset issue, or, oh, you're feeling overwhelmed. How are you going to figure out how to outsource that? We kind of jump the gun. And I think that starting to unpack, hey, there's a whole person who's gone through a whole life story and circumstance to get to where they are. Um, these are things that are sort of the challenges of coaches when they're working with clients, is how to sort of unpack that and hold space. And I think that coaching is such a new field that coaches themselves are still discovering the power of the skill, much less people at large. What is a coach? What, are you going to teach me how to play basketball?
Right.
What is a coach? What's the value of coaching? I think a lot of people will say, I just need somebody to fix my problem. I don't, because they feel stuck. And so educating, I think, is the number one sort of challenge, educating people on what is a coach, what's the difference between a coach and like a mentor, right? So, someone who's going to come in and do advising, someone who's going to give you advice. That's actually a different skill set with a different set of liabilities and relationship. And can blend together. But pure coaching is about helping you become more curious about your challenges so that you can engage in a learning process. And so helping people understand that. And I think, especially for women, women have different challenges when it comes to figuring out or unlocking business success, because we come with a whole specific set of conditioning that we get from before we even remember about what's possible. I know for me as a business owner, when I started my business, what took me so long, and then what was super challenging once I started, was the belief that I wasn't any good with money, that I'm irresponsible. And part of my unpacking was the conditioning of that, right? I said, I have to stop believing this and just know that I have the capacity to learn whatever I need to achieve whatever I'm trying to achieve. I can believe in my own ability to learn and grow. And so I think working with women, understanding the power of coaching as a tool that sets you up for the right mindset to learn and grow, and also realize the challenges that women are facing when they're trying to grow in their business or career, that are just unique
Right.
challenges. Yeah.
And as you were talking, I was literally thinking, I'm a problem solver, and that's kind of what I'm always focused on is, okay, what's not working and how do we fix it? Or you want to be at point A, but you really need to be over here. How are we going to get there? So what I'm hearing is that the coaching role is not necessarily to fix, but to educate and open your mind so that you have your own bandwidth to figure it out. I mean, and that's in real simple Donna terms, not the fancy words.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And as a business coach, and I know you know this, is everybody says, your business has a niche, and that is the problem that you solve. So the value of your business or career is the problem that you solve. And I think that that's what gets valued and rewarded. And we can sort of overemphasize problem solving when it comes to our strategies for increasing business performance. But it's not the only strategy. I have a strategy that I love to employ, which is nourish what's working. Let's take time to notice what's working, and how do we nourish that? Sometimes when you nourish what's working, the issues kind of resolve themselves on their own. If we get too hyper fixated on fixing,
Mm-hmm.
it can sort of start to create more of the same. And a coach can help evoke awareness and take pause and stillness to create space for seeing the bigger picture.
In the creating the space, I think in today's world and environment, we're also rushed, and you already said we're overloaded with information. It's constant. So just being able to pull back and take a minute, to process. I think that that's huge. So awesome. So I would love for you to share with us, where do you see the industry going? And I'm speaking very loosely here with coaching because I know, you know, it's not necessarily regulated. Um, Anybody can put out a coaching shingle, with or without credentials. But I'm curious to know where you see the industry going, in being more accepted, as legitimate practitioners.
Yeah, it's a great point that you made. And that could have even been an answer of one of the challenges of the coaching industry is that anybody can call themselves a coach. And a lot of times people want to be able to charge for something and they, are trying to pick an industry and they're like, oh, I could just say I'm a coach.
Hmm.
But the coaching industry is exploding. And
Hmm.
one oversimplified explanation could be because of that. People are looking for shortcuts, which on the short term is not good for the industry because you have a lot of people who really have little to no training out there calling themselves a coach, and then people have a bad experience and say, "Oh, the coaching is terrible. I don't want to work with a coach." But I
Hmm.
think those people are going to hit the limit of what's possible without training, and that's where I see the future of coaching is in coach training, because it's not just jumping through hoops to get coach training. You're actually learning to understand a skill set and know how to hold that space during a coaching session, which is going to create a more powerful container for the coaching relationship. You're going to become a better facilitator for your clients. And so what I see is a lot of these people who are sort of jumping in, head first and not really thinking about it are going to start to seek out training. They're going to want to, and I think that's a great kind of trajectory to have, is like just get in there, you know, let it be messy, let it be dirty, start to generate now you have clients, now you have revenue, now you can invest in deeper coach training. And there are just some wonderful organizations out there that are really focused on helping coaches be the best at what they do and really help. I think at the end of the day, clients want results. And so those skill sets are there to help, create a container where clients can get that expansion, get that learning, and also get results.
Awesome. And I'm curious for you to share one other thing. I think you're aware of the fact that I work with a lot of divorcing women. So we have,
Hmm.
I have a lot of people that are seeing counselors, mental health professionals, but then, they may be talking about seeing, a divorce coach, things of that nature. So I'm curious, with the work that you're doing, can you distinguish for our listeners the difference, between being a coach versus a counselor? I think that might be helpful.
Oh, great. Yeah, that is a great question. So, these are two distinct areas of expertise that are very complementary to each other. So, a
Mhm.
therapist, a counselor, a psychologist is going to help you. And I'm oversimplifying, and I am not a psychologist. So apologies to any psychologists out there if I'm missing missing the mark. So I'm going to answer from the point of view of a coach and what we're trained to understand. So um, therapists and counselors can help you work through your past. You're traversing your past. What has happened? How do I resolve um, unresolved stress? We might say trauma sometimes, right? If there's been trauma or overwhelm. So their skill set is, and what they're equipped to help with is maybe when we go back and look at what has happened, we experience emotional charge. We have a reaction. So they are going to be able to support you as those things come up. That's very
Mhm.
different from coaching. Coaching is very forward focused,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so it says, okay, maybe I'm going through a divorce and a lot is coming up for me. How do I work with what's coming up in the direction of what I want to create? So in that way, things might come up in a coaching session that then you would take to your therapist. You wouldn't actually deal with it in your coaching session. So a lot of my coaching clients, even though I'm not a divorce coach, I work, most of my clients also have therapists. So then, they have two people on their team. One is helping them with the triggers that come up and the reactivity and getting some skills for that. And then coaches are saying, okay, how do we take, what's on the other side of this current challenge, and how do we keep you moving forward from there?
Right. That forward focus. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm going to shift gears here and ask you a different kind of question. I would love for you to tell us, if you could have lunch with any woman, living or deceased, who would it be and why? What would you love to ask her?
Mm. So the person I would love to have lunch with is living. So maybe I'm manifesting it. Let's put it out there.
I love it.
Is a woman. Her name is Lisa Feldman Barrett. And she is a neuroscience researcher, and she has a book, an amazing book called How Emotions Are Made. And this is the research that she's done on literally that, how emotions are made. And it's turning everybody upside down. It doesn't matter what field you're in. There's sort of this understanding that emotions are fixed, that you have some sort of physiological response, and that equates an emotion. And her research says emotions are contrived, meaning that we have physiological responses that are not inherently tied to any particular emotion, but that we are conditioned to understand and interpret those messages through the lens of whatever is socially appropriate or socially conditioned. And this is a really big deal, because especially in terms of what we were just talking about, of sort of unlocking where you feel stuck, or when you hit up against your limiting beliefs. If you think that an emotion is something that's fixed, then that's going to be your relationship to anything that triggers that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Something's happening and it says, well, that just makes me angry, so I'm going to avoid it. I don't want to feel that, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to understand, oh, I've been conditioned to relate to these things through that lens of these sensations and these reactions, but I can also change that. It's changeable. That starts to open up new possibilities, and awesome. I work with that a lot in my practice, is helping people develop emotional intelligence, as is what we call it, where you're no longer just stuck in your reaction, but you have a little bit of space before you respond. And I would love to take her to lunch and just learn about how she got into this. It's such a fascinating area of research. What kind of challenges she faced. I mean, as a woman doing this neuroscience research that's pioneering, what kind of challenges is she facing, and what applications does she see this being able to have to make a big difference?
Well, that sounds fabulous, and I'm manifesting right along with you that you do get to have that
Thank you.
conversation. And maybe she'll hear this and want to meet with you. But and I would love to add that to my reading list as well. So I think we have a lot of people that make reference to good materials. So thank you for sharing that. But share with our listeners that might be inspired to work with you, learn more about what you're doing. How do they reach you? Where do they find you?
I have all the socials. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Either my name's Shelly Poovey or Body aTune, BODYATTUNE. That's also my website, www.bodyaTune.com. I think if you look, Google Body aTune, Shelly Poovey, they'll all show up. Would love for people to connect with me there or connect with me on my website.
It sounds like an awesome opportunity, and I hope that everybody will take you up on that. So, Shelley, I want to thank you for taking a little bit of time with us today to share your story and your wisdom and your heart, which is very obvious. I know that women are going to walk away with new possibilities, and that's the point of our podcast, is just to share people, experiences that we're having, and how everybody's just doing something to change the world. So thank you for tuning in today.
Thank you, Donna.
And I appreciate you being a guest today.
Thank you for tuning in to the Money Matters Empower Her podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money. It's about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values.
If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you want.